2 weeks before they came out, Moshe Rabbeinu told them the laws of Korban Pesach, and he told them you have to make a decision. Mishchu. He should have just said K'chu lachem soin on the 10th of this month. Take a sheep, but he precedes it with another word, Mishchu. You got to pull away. They had to make a decision. Now it's now. Are you going with HaKadosh Baruch Hu or not? They were completely shakua. They were sunk in the avodah zarah of Mitzrayim, and they now have to make a decision. Which side of the fence? That was on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. They were told this.
Is it before Choshech?
Yeah, before Choshech. Yeah. Before Choshech. 4/5 couldn't do it. They couldn't do it, and they didn't survive Choshech. Then again, on the 14th, the morning of the 14th, before they actually checked the Korban Pesach in the afternoon, Moshe Rabbeinu then reminds them again, tells them another parasha. Rashi says, "B'yudal b'nisan nermela." This was said to them. Vayom Hashem al Moshe v'Aaron, Zois chukas haposach. This is the law, and the choik means we don't understand the reasoning. Doesn't matter. Kol ben neicha lo yoichal boy. They get reminded again that a ben neicha, now a nochri is normally a non-Jew. A ben neicha cannot eat it. So Rashi, or the Tagni already tells us, a ben neicha doesn't mean necessarily a goy. He says, Kol ba yisrael de yishtamed. If a Yid never has committed shmat, he's abandoned his religion, he can't join in the Korban Pesach. And Rashi brings from the Mechilta, somebody who the way he behaves is foreign, is nachri to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The echad nachri, when it's an actual goy, the echad Yisrael mumma b'mashma, or a Jew who has abandoned his religion, is included in the word called ben neicha. So although we mentioned yesterday, one of the sons of the Seder table is the Rasha, he's there. But if it's gone all the way, that he's a ben neicha, everything he does is completely foreign. Kiviyachol to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he's not part of it. He can't sit at the Seder table. Just interesting, yeah?
Sorry, what does it take to be considered a ben neicha?
What's a ben neicha?
Yeah,
probably if he's lost his emunah. Well, a Jew's lost his emunah. As long as he's a mamin, yeah, so he's a Jew, and the question is he a good Jew or not a good Jew, yeah? But if his emunah's gone, he's out. He's out of the picture. That's an example of it. Or converts out. So as regards Korban Pesach, they're the same. Of course, a ben neicha who's a Jew, who unfortunately everything he does is completely upside down. It's wrong. It's connected to the Torah, but he can always come back. A goy will remain a goy. A goy is a goy. A nachri is a nachri. But a Yisrael, he can act like a nachri, but of course the door is always open. He can turn it around and come back. Listen to this Maisa. Unbelievable Maisa. Rabbi Akilinski told this Maisa. In 1967, in February 1967, he said he was standing outside his yeshiva in Chadera when the delivery man with the vegetables for the yeshiva was dropping off the vegetables, and he said you could see on the guy's face. He said his face was white, his eyes were long. You could see something was really disturbing him. So he said to him, Adoni, he said, what's the matter? What's the matter? And the guy burst into tears. And he said his life is no life. And he said he'd reached the end of his tether. He said, what's the matter? So he said his daughter has run off with an Arab boy to an Arab village. He said, Lama li Chaim. He said his whole life had collapsed. So he said to him, which village has he gone to? It's near Chadera. So he said to him, Baka el Jarba.
Baka Galbia.
Galbia, he knows it probably, yeah. Which apparently was not a place where any Jew turned up. It was a place where, it was not a place to go to. So he said to the driver, he said, I'll go there and I'll speak to her. So he said to him, how can you go there? He said, the minute you walk in there, they'll stone you to death. He said, that's what they're like there. They're mod kitzunim. They're really wild chavra. He said, it's too dangerous. He said, what do you mean? He said, I'm a Nevadica. He said, in Nevada, we were only scared of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're not scared of anybody. I'm a Nevadica. So he found out there was a bus which travelled nearby. There was a bus which went from Chadera to nearby this village. So he got the times of the bus. He said, but they had another drive. So that year, 1967, it was Moshe Shmita. So he said the vegetables they could get were year 8 produce, but the fruit for the yeshiva was still had kedusha shmita. So they used to get it from an Arab farmer who they knew used to drop off the fruits, the peiros. So when the Arab driver came, he said to him, "Tell me something." He said, "Can I have a lift with you? Can I go back with you? Will you go back into the West Bank?" Well, anyway, so he said, "Where are you going to?"
What?
He's going back to the Arab village, or he's going back to where he lived. He didn't actually live in. He didn't live in there, but he was near there. So he said, "Where do you want to go to?" So he says, "Back al Garbiya." He said, "Are you crazy?" He said, "This Arab said to him." He said, "I'm not taking you there." He said, "You'll get killed, and then they'll accuse me of being a collaborator." He said, "No way am I taking you to that village." So he said, "Can you drop me off nearby then? Can you drop me off nearby?" So he said, "Harry, come on, sit down." So he said, "I'll drop you off round the corner." He said, "I'm not going anywhere near there with you." He said, "But I'll drop you off round the corner." Harry, come sit down. So the Arab driver took him to round the corner. Well, round the next bend was back at Al Jarvia, and he dropped him off. So there he is. Rabbi Yaakov is only a small man. He walks around the corner, and sure enough, miyad, he said that someone threw a stone at him. An Arab kid threw a stone at him. So he calls over this Arab kid. He says, "Come here." He said, "Evo gara Kadi." Was the Kadi? The Kadi's the Rav, yeah? Where's the Kadi? Ah. He said, "You come to visit the Kadi." Oh, that's different. And he walked him all the way to the Kadi's house. He said, and more and more Arabs were watching this going on, and he told them he's come to see the Kadi. So they knock on the door, and the Kadi opens the door, and Taki welcomes him in. He said, with a lot of respect, welcomes him in. So he said, "Do you speak Hebrew?" He said, "Yeah, I speak Hebrew." So he said to him, "You know, with the Jews," he said, "the Rav is Masada Kiddushin. Is it the same thing with the Muslims, that the Kadi does the chasnas?" He said, yeah. The Kadi, I do all the chasnas in this village." Okay. He then asked him, he said, "You know, if a non-Jewish woman wants to marry a Jewish man or vice versa," he said, "I won't marry them off straight away." He said, "She's got to go through Geirus. And to marry a Jewish man, she's got to go through a Tanakh Geirus." He said, "Do you have the same thing with the Muslims?" So he said, "Yeah." He said, "We don't recognize mixed marriages. If you want to marry a Muslim, you've got to be a Muslim." So he said to him, "With us it takes about a year till she learns about Yiddishkeit. Do you have the same thing?" So the Kadi said, "Well, we're not that strict." "We're not that strict." He said, "But in principle," he said, "Yeah." He said, "She can't marry a Muslim boy unless she becomes a Muslim." So Yaakov said to the Kadi, "Ni sameach lishma." He said, "I've had better simchas than that." He said, he's very happy to hear that. So he said, now, he told her, he said, "You know, a Israeli girl, a Jewish girl has come here to marry an Arab boy. Would you mind if I speak to her and tell her that both in Yiddishkeit and in Islam, you can't have a mixed marriage. If she wants to marry the Arab, she has to convert first to Islam. Would you mind if I told her that?" So he said, Of course you can tell her that. Of course you can." So he said, "Well, where is she?" So he went to the window and he pointed to the house where she was living with her boyfriend's family. So he thanked him very much. He walked. By then he said, "There's already a crowd waiting outside." He said, but the Kadi saw him to the door and stayed in the window watching as he went there, so no one touched him. He said everyone saw the Kadi was watching, and then they left him alone. So he knocks on the door, and an old Arab lady, the shvinger, comes to the door. So he said, "Do you speak Hebrew?" She said, No. But in order to make conversation, they brought out the girl. So he said to her, "I've got a Drishat Shalom from your father, and basically what you're doing is killing him. You're killing your father." So she said, "What do you mean I'm killing my father?" She said, this is what she said to Rabbi Yaakov. She said, "For a year I had a boyfriend from a Shoma Hatza'i kibbutz. He didn't believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He didn't even fast on Yom Kippur. And my father was very happy to take him as a son-in-law. As our kofer, she said, he was happy as a son-in-law. He said, now I've got an Arab boy who's a Ma'amin, he believes in Allah. Yeah? So why should my father object? He said, I'm sure you would understand as a rabbi that to marry a Ma'amin is better than to marry a kofer. So he said the Shviga was standing there, not quite understanding what was going on. But see, he said to her, listen, he said, I'll tell you the difference. I'll tell you what the difference between marrying that boy from the Shom HaTzai kibbutz and marrying, even though he might be a kofer, and marrying an Arab who claims to be a Ma'amin. He said, if a person cuts his hand badly, a very deep wound, as long as it's still attached, there's hope. It's very painful and you can't use the hand, but there's hope you can stitch it back together and the hand will reattach and you'll one day again be able to use the hand again. But if you chop the hand off completely, it can never grow back. It can never grow back. So he said to the same thing like this. He said, that boyfriend you had, could be he wasn't Shomer Torah mitzvahs, but he could become a Shomer Torah mitzvahs, again. He could become a Ma'amin. He said, if not him, maybe his children. They can find their way back. He said, but if you marry a Muslim, then you're cut off from Klal Yisrael. That's the end of it. That's the branch cut off, and there's no way back. So she said to him, no, I disagree. It's more important to marry a Ma'amin who's a Muslim than a kofer who's Jewish. So he said to her, listen, I can't stay long. He said, they're going to think I'm up to something. If I stay any longer, the bus is leaving soon, I've got to go. He said, listen carefully to what I'm telling you. If war, he said he didn't know what he was saying then, he didn't realise what he was saying. This was February 1967. He said, if war breaks out again between the Arabs and Israel, he said, your boyfriend from the Shom HaTzai kibbutz will be called up to the army, and he will give his life defending your father, save your father's life. This Arab boyfriend of yours will sharpen his sword and will chop your dad's head off in the sin that they've got towards the Yidden. And he said, remember what I've said to you. Remember what I've said to you. She didn't want to listen. He left. He walked back. He said the crowd there didn't touch him because the caddy was still watching from the window. He said, and he took the bus back to Hadera. Okay. He said, that was in February. In May, the war started brewing. In June, the war broke out. And then he said, after the war broke out, about a month after the war broke out, finished, this Yid, who was delivering the vegetables, he saw him again dropping off vegetables in the yeshiva, smiling away. So he went up to ask him, what's the matter? He said, my daughter came back. She came back. He said, you won't believe what happened. He said, the caddy refused to marry her to the Muslim till she learned how to convert to Islam, till she learned about it. In the meantime, the war broke out, and she said, her chosn to be showed her his sword. He said, I'm sharpening this so I can slaughter any Jew I find when war breaks out. And she realised what he said to her was true. He said she ran away from the village. The first opportunity she ran away, and she came back home. So said Rabbi Yaakov, that's the difference. He said, as long as a Yid, he might, however far gone he's gone, he can always come back. He might be a Ben Nechon now, but there's a hope that in the future he can turn it around. But he said, but once a guy's a real Nochri, a proper goy, a goy's a goy. If someone completely abandons the ship, then it's takach and vei. It's completely cut. But as long as it's not severed, it may well be he's not behaving the way he should be at the moment, but there's always hope that he'll come back. Now, there's a bit of a quandary. We know in Mitzrayim, we were told, Chazal tells us, Arizal tells us, that they were on level 49 of Tumah. They were sunk in Avodah Zarah, so their behaviour was not really, they didn't really have any zchusim to come out. And in the zchus of two mitzvahs, Bris Milah and Korban Pesach, they came out. So the question is, how does two mitzvahs override 49 levels of Tumah and Avodah Zarah, everything they got involved in? How does it do it? How did it override it? How could that be so special, it overrode it? So said Rabbi Yaakov, he said, that's exactly the point. He said, when a person is on such a low level, then any mitzvah he does is more special than normal. If a guy's on a high madrega, you expect those mitzvahs from him. You expect him to do what's right. But it's definitely because they were on such a low level, that's what made those two mitzvahs so special. He said, because that's all they could do, and they risked their lives for it. They did it. They gave everything for it. For those two mitzvahs, he said in Shamayim, he said those mitzvahs were so special, it was enough of a zechus to outweigh 49 levels of tumah, and anything wrong they may have done. Those mitzvahs had the power to override. And he told a beautiful story. He said his father was a Talmud in Radin, Talmud of the Chofetz Chaim, and he said he asked the Chofetz Chaim the following question. He said, it says in the Zohar, any mitzvah which is not done with Yiras Shamayim and Avas Hashem hasn't got the wings to fly up to Shamayim. There's not enough power in that mitzvah to reach Shamayim. So he said to him, it's got to be done lishma and all the milas of a mitzvah. So he said, so nowadays the way we do mitzvahs, what chance have we got? How good? I mean, we don't do it like that anymore. We're not on that madrega. So what are our mitzvahs worth? So the Chofetz Chaim said, let me explain to you a story happened to me. Before the First World War, he met the baker in Radin. And he looked very, very worn out. So he asked him, what's the matter? He said, I stay up all night baking bread. In the morning, I try my best to make nice rolls and nice loaves and everything. All I get is complaints. This is no good. That's no good. These aren't, this is a bit burned. All complaints. And he asked the Chofetz Chaim for a bracha panosis. He gave him a bracha. He said when the First World War broke out, he met him again and he was smiling away. So he said, what's happened? So he said, Rebbe, Gavaldi, panosis Gavaldi now. He said, why? He said, well, it used to be, before the war, people had a bit more money, could afford a bit better bread, and therefore they complained the whole time, my bread's not good enough. He said, now people have got nothing, the war's broken out. He said, now if they can afford any old bread will do, it doesn't matter how burnt it is, they're happy to get any old bread. They should get a piece of bread to eat. There's so little to go around, and the people got no money, no one complains anymore, they're just happy to get a piece of bread. Said the Chofetz Chaim. In years gone by, Doris gone by, when Klal Yisrael were full of mitzvahs, so then they expected in Shemayim good schorah. So then they looked at it and they said, that one's not as good as it should be, put that on one side, that's a good one, we'll let it through. He said, but nowadays, he said when there's a Shad Chirum, he said, we got especially his time, where everybody was fighting against Yiddishkeit, all the Jewish communists and everyone was fighting. He said, nowadays, we can't get our hands on so many mitzvahs anymore. In Shemayim, they don't look at it whether it's Yiras Shemayim or Avas Hashem. Did you do the mitzvah? Any old mitzvah is good enough. In Shemayim now, they accept everything we do, he said, because it's good enough. Nowadays, it's acceptable. So says Yaklinsky, that's what happened in Mitzrayim. Exactly the same thing. He said it was few and far between. They hadn't done many mitzvahs, but that made it special. That made whatever they did do, it made it extra special and was accepted in Shemayim. So I heard a very beautiful thought. So Chazal say there's of two mitzvahs. Nigalu bi Mitzrayim. There's an amazing Gemara in Sanhedrin. The Gemara says, Shalu as Rebbe Eliezer HaGadol. That's Rebbe Eliezer in the Mishnah. What should a person do to be saved from the troubling times which will happen before Mashiach comes? So he said an amazing thing. He said, Yasek b'Torah or v'Gemilas Chasodim. Make a point of learning Torah and Gemilas Chesed. So I heard a Rav in Eretz Yisrael, he said it's amazing. He pointed out two things, two mitzvahs. Grab onto these two mitzvahs and that'll be the Zuchus. And he said, if it sounds strange, he said, it's not strange. That's exactly what happened in Mitzrayim. They chapped onto two mitzvahs, and two mitzvahs done in difficult times was enough to activate the Geula from Mitzrayim. And Rebbe Eliezer revealed, we got the same thing as well. When we learn, and when we do Chesed, that will be enough of a Zuchus to protect us and see us through the difficult times which will occur in the world before Mashiach comes. So now, it's an incredible thing, this. As we all know, opportunities arise to do mitzvahs. I'm going to do a little bit of a plug here. Let's have a davening shachris with a minyan. I'm not sure what time the minyan officially starts, or
doing very well the last 2 days.
Yeah, you're doing well. Oh, very good. Very good.
The last 2 days.
But think about it, right? Chazal tell us.
2 days.
All right, okay. Chazal tell us that you should be amongst the first 10 in the minyan. You should try and be amongst the first 10 in the minyan. So when you get a minyan where the chances of you being amongst the first 10 are very high, grab it. Don't waste the opportunity, right? But think about it. What's the first 10? What's so special? Because the Shekhinah only comes when there's a minyan. So that's the first 10 are the ones who bring the Shekhinah down. And Chazal say they get the equivalent Sechah. If 100 people come afterwards, the first 10 get the equivalent Sechah. So if you anyway come into Shachris or planning to go to Shachris, so come on time. Come a little bit earlier. You'll daven a little bit more. It sounds very insignificant. It's not. It's massive. It's massive. Hey, you might answer made to the brachas first. Or Chappy Yesh Rabba at the first Kaddish. Whatever it is, every little mitzvah, it mustn't be ignored, because however small we think it is insignificant, we're living in a time where the whole world's up against us. All the values of the world are anti-Torah values. Nothing supports what we try and teach ourselves and our children. So any mitzvah we can do in Shomayim, they're waiting for them. In Shomayim, it gives a special nachas ruach. So any opportunity. Keep saying about handing out the stock. I love it. It's like a state egg. It's about not. You should get stock before Shachris and Mincha. So Meyer apparently Alpi Soy. It's not awesome. It's Alpi Soy in Yonim. I don't know. It's brought down. But it's not the point. The point is, there's an opportunity here to do another mitzvah. Kosh Baruch doesn't care anymore, nighttime, daytime, as long as it's not on Shabbos. Yeah? Kosh Baruch is looking forward to these mitzvahs. We mustn't belittle them. Any little thing you do, whether it's a negel vasa, whether it's a sitzes, whether it's keeping your tefillin on for another 2 minutes at the end of davening instead of rushing off, if you're not in a hurry. Any little thing. And a very, very good one, guys, is try and bring Shabbos in a little bit earlier. A little bit earlier. Try not to rush into Shabbos because mistakes can happen, especially in winter. It's crazy. Someone said to me, so you use a brochure for when you used to do the brochures. Now it's all done online. Fundraising. It's like Erev Shabbos. It doesn't matter how many years you start before the event day. The last 3 weeks, he said, it's like 3 hours before Shabbos. It goes crazy. It doesn't matter how long you prepare. It's so important to a little bit more Shabbos, a little bit more Kedusha in the house. Come with a little bit more root to prepare. You've no idea. We've no idea what it means to add another couple of minutes onto Shabbos. Who can even dream of the schar? Because I'll say it's never been revealed. The schar of Shabbos is so great. Little opportunities like that, wherever it is, everyone's got their own little thing where you can do a little bit more. Whether it's I once said to the boys in school, we made a cheshbon. If a boy learns for 2 minutes a night before he goes to bed, 2 minutes every night. So in a year, that's 730 minutes of Torah learning, which is 12 hours of learning. Times that by 50, that's 600 hours of Torah learning by learning 2 minutes before you go to sleep. Who can imagine, right? Taking to Shemayim, another thousands of hours of learning, just from 2 minutes. That's the power of 2 minutes. They're saying Kelm, they used to have a Seder on Motzei Shabbos for 5 minutes. After Havdalah, before Havdalah, they would learn for 5 minutes. That was a 5 minute Seder. What was the purpose of it? Just the concept of not 5 minutes, what you can achieve in 5 minutes. Okay, so whatever we can do, whatever we can chap, whether it's making more brachos, whether it's anything, anyone can choose anything. Don't belittle it. Don't think it's small and insignificant. In the day and age we live in, and Be'ez Hashem, we're prior to Mashiach coming, every little mitzvah we do is massive in Shamayim. It's accepted, it's wanted, they look forward to it, and it makes us very special. It makes us beloved to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He looks down and he says, this is my people. These are my people who, through thick and thin, they've not given up. They've not given up. We mustn't belittle it. And in those schus of these little mitzvahs, Be'ez Hashem, the Gula will come.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Schwalbe. The story was very interesting.
Great story, isn't it?